Your house is perfect for my parents. They move tomorrow. Nicole's words hit me like a slap across the face. I'm Vincent Clearwater, 69 years old, and I've heard a lot of crazy things in my time, but this one took the cake. I was standing in my own kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, staring at my daughter-in-law like she'd just announced she was running for president. You know that moment when someone says something so outrageous that your brain just stops working? That was me. Tuesday morning, October 15th, in the house I'd called home for 30 years. Excuse me? I set down my coffee real careful-like, the way you handle dynamite. Nicole Clearwater, my daughter-in-law for 3 years, should have been my first clue. Stood there in my kitchen wearing that smile she uses when she thinks she's being clever. Designer jeans, expensive handbag, the whole 9 yards. Everything about her screamed, "I know better than you." The moving truck's already booked for Saturday morning, she continued, pulling out her phone like she was reading off a grocery list. Golden Meadows has a lovely studio apartment waiting for you. Activities, meal plans, everything an elderly person needs. Elderly person. Let me tell you something about being 69. I can still outwork men half my age, still teach Sunday school every week, still handle my own affairs just fine. Thank you very much. But Nicole saw what she wanted to see. A tired old man taking up space that rightfully belonged to her family. "Nicole," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Nobody's moving anywhere." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Vince, be realistic. You're rattling around in this big house all by yourself. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's ridiculous for one person. My parents need the space. Dad's retiring next year, and their apartment lease is up. Here's the thing Nicole never understood about this house. It's not just 2,200 square feet of walls and rooms. It's 30 years of memories. It's where I raised 28 kids that nobody else wanted. Kids like David, my son, adoption papers and all, who was standing behind her looking like he wanted to crawl under a rock. "Mom, maybe we should discuss this privately," David said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's nothing to discuss, honey. I've already handled everything." Nicole waved him off like you'd shoo a fly. "Vince understands that biological family comes first. Don't you, Vince?" Biological family. There it was, the phrase that cut straight to the bone. See, Nicole never saw me as David's real father. To her, I was just some guy who happened to be there when a scared 7-year-old boy needed someone. Just a temporary arrangement that had gone on too long. What Nicole didn't know, what she couldn't see past her own narrow worldview, was that this house had been home to 28 children over the years. Broken kids, angry kids, kids that the system had given up on. Every single one of them had walked through that front door scared and hurting. And every single one had left knowing they mattered. The living room where Nicole wanted to put her parents' recliners, that's where Amanda Foster did her homework every night for 4 years. She'd come to me at 13 with more anger than a kid should carry, and grades that made teachers shake their heads. Today she's Dr. Amanda Foster, Chief of Pediatric Surgery at Vanderbilt Medical Center. The kitchen where we were standing, that's where Kevin Moore learned to make pancakes at age 9, after coming to me so scared of men he'd hide in closets. Now he's got his own law practice in Nashville. But Nicole walked past the graduation photos in my hallway every family dinner and never asked a single question about those faces. Never wondered why a retired high school teacher had pictures of doctors and lawyers and engineers calling him Dad. "Let me get this straight," I said, setting my coffee down completely now. "You've booked a moving truck, found me an apartment, and decided my future, all without asking what I want. Someone has to make the hard decisions, Vince. You're 69 years old. You need care. I need care." I looked at this woman, this 34-year-old marketing coordinator, who'd been married to my son for 3 years and thought she knew everything about family. "Nicole, what exactly makes you think I can't take care of myself?" "Well, you live alone. This house is too big. It's just practical. Practical." That's what she called erasing 26 years of my life, displacing an 8-year-old foster child currently sleeping upstairs, and stealing the house where 28 kids learned they were worth something. And if I say no, Nicole's smile got a little sharper. "Why would you say no? My parents are good people. They raised 3 children of their own. They understand what real family means. Real family." There it was again. I looked at my son David, standing behind his wife like a whipped dog, and made a decision that would change everything. You want to talk about real family, Nicole? Let me make some phone calls. That's when her confident smile started to wobble just a little bit. You know what they say about the best laid plans? Well, Nicole Clearwater had been laying hers for months, and I was just starting to see how deep this rabbit hole went. After she dropped that bombshell about the moving truck, I needed some air. David followed me out to the back porch, wringing his hands like a kid who'd broken something valuable. "Dad, I swear I didn't know she was going to do this," he said, and I could hear the 7-year-old boy in his voice. The same scared kid who'd come to me 29 years ago after his birth parents lost custody. "I know you didn't, son." I sat down on the porch swing I'd built back in 2005 when the Martinez twins needed a quiet place to do their reading. "But we need to talk about what your wife's been up to. See, here's what I'd been noticing over the past year. Little comments during family dinners. Nicole asking pointed questions about my retirement income, my medical history, my plans for the future. I'd chalked it up to normal daughter-in-law concern, but looking back, she'd been doing reconnaissance. "She's been talking to my neighbors," I told David. "Mrs. Peterson mentioned last week that Nicole stopped by, asking about whether I'd been keeping up with yard work, said she was worried about me." David's face went pale. "She never told me that. And there's more. Remember when she offered to help with my taxes last spring? I thought it was nice. Turns out she made copies of everything. My income, my savings, my insurance policies. Even got a copy of the deed to this house. That's..." David struggled for words. "That's not legal, is it?" "Probably not, but it's definitely not right." I pointed toward the kitchen window, where we could see Nicole on her phone, pacing back and forth like a general coordinating battle plans. "Your wife's been building a case against me for months, son, making me look incompetent, financially vulnerable, socially isolated." The truth was, Nicole had been playing a long game. 3 years ago, when she first married David, she'd been sweet as pie. Brought me flowers, asked about my teaching days, even seemed interested in the foster kids' stories. But once she figured out the house was worth $185,000 with only $8,000 left on the mortgage, her tune changed real quick. "Dad, what are we going to do?" That's when I pulled out my phone and showed David something that made his eyes go wide. Text messages, dozens of them from the past 6 months. "Dr. Amanda Foster," I read aloud, "sent me this last week. Dad, how are you feeling? Nicole called me yesterday asking about your health. Said you seemed confused during their last visit. Just checking in." David grabbed the phone, scrolling through more messages. Kevin Moore. "Dad, got a weird call from David's wife asking about your memory. Everything okay?" Professor Lisa Warren. "Vincent, Nicole contacted me about your living situation. Are you having problems we should know about?" "She's been calling my kids," I said, letting that sink in. Fishing for information, planting seeds of doubt, trying to get them to worry about my mental state. Here's the thing about family, real family. When 28 successful adults consider you their father, word travels fast. What Nicole didn't realize was that every single one of my kids had been comparing notes. Her suspicious phone calls had been red flags, not confirmation of her concerns. "And there's something else," I said, pulling up another text. This one's from Captain Maria Gonzalez, Tennessee National Guard. "Dad, David's wife asked me about power of attorney documents. Said you might need help with financial decisions. Should I be worried?" David looked like he might be sick. "She's been trying to get them to support her plan." Exactly. But here's what Nicole doesn't understand about the kids I raised. I stood up, feeling every one of my 69 years, but also feeling something else. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're not alone. They don't just love me because I fed them and put a roof over their heads. They love me because I taught them to think for themselves. Through the kitchen window, we could see Nicole ending her phone call. She'd been on that phone for 20 minutes, probably coordinating with her parents, maybe even the moving company. "Dad, I should have seen this coming. The questions about your health, the comments about the house being too big. She's been setting this up. Don't blame yourself, son. Nicole's good at what she does. She's been working on this like a marketing campaign. And that's exactly what her job taught her to do. Identify the target, create the need, present the solution. What's the solution supposed to be? Simple. Remove the obstacle, that's me, and install her parents as the grateful beneficiaries of my generous decision to downsize. They get a $185,000 house for the cost of an $8,000 mortgage buyout. Nicole gets to play the dutiful daughter who saved her elderly father-in-law from isolation and decline. David was quiet for a long moment, watching his wife through the window. "What are you going to do?" I smiled, thinking about those 28 phone numbers in my contact list. "I'm going to show your wife what real family looks like when someone threatens one of their own." That's when Nicole stepped back outside, her phone in hand and that confident smile back on her face. "Vince, I've just confirmed everything with Golden Meadows. They're expecting you Wednesday morning. Isn't that wonderful? Let me tell you something about Nicole Clearwater. She knew exactly how to pick her battles. 3 days after that kitchen confrontation, she chose her battlefield. Oak Ridge Baptist Church's monthly potluck dinner. Now, if you've never been to a small-town church potluck, picture this. 60-plus good folks bringing their best casseroles and their biggest hearts to Fellowship Hall. These people had known me for 30 years. They'd watched me raise kid after kid, celebrated graduations, mourned losses, and supported me through every challenge that comes with fostering children nobody else wanted. Nicole walked in that Wednesday night like she owned the place, carrying a store-bought pie and wearing her Sunday best. Her parents, Harold and Patricia Sterling, flanked her like nervous backup singers. They'd never attended a church function before, but tonight they looked like they were on a mission. I was serving green bean casserole to Mrs. Henderson from the third pew when Nicole's voice cut through the friendly chatter like a knife through butter. "Attention, everyone. I have an announcement to make." The Fellowship Hall went dead quiet. 60 pairs of eyes turned toward this woman who just interrupted their meal. Pastor Williams, who'd taught alongside me at Oak Ridge High for 15 years before I retired, stepped forward with genuine concern. "Nicole, is everything all right?" "Actually, Pastor, I'm glad you're here. This concerns the whole congregation. Here's where Nicole made her first mistake. See, these weren't strangers she was addressing. These were people who'd known me since I was 43 years old when I first started taking in foster kids. They'd watched Amanda Foster grow from an angry 13-year-old into a successful surgeon. They'd seen Kevin Moore transform from a terrified boy into a confident attorney. They knew my story. Nicole opened that same manila folder she'd had in my kitchen and spread out documents like she was presenting evidence in a trial. As many of you know, Vincent Clearwater has been living alone for several years now. At 69, he's reached the point where he needs professional care. You could have heard a pin drop. I saw confusion on familiar faces. People who'd watched me teach adult Sunday school just last week, who'd seen me coordinate the church food bank for the past decade. "Now, I know this is difficult to discuss," Nicole continued, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "But sometimes families have to make hard decisions. Vincent has been generous with his time and his home, but it's time for real family to step up." Mrs. Henderson, bless her heart, raised her hand like she was back in elementary school. At 78, she'd been teaching Sunday school since before Nicole was born. "Nicole, dear, Vincent seems perfectly capable of managing his own affairs. Ma'am, with respect, you see him for a few hours on Sundays. I live with this reality every day." That's when Nicole pulled out her secret weapons, medical brochures, assisted living pamphlets, and legal papers I'd never seen before. She'd done her homework, I'll give her that. My parents need housing. Vincent needs professional care. It's the perfect solution. Harold Sterling looked like he wanted to crawl under the nearest table. "Daughter, maybe this isn't the right venue." "Dad, please." The church community needs to understand the situation. You know what? Nicole was feeding off the audience's attention. She was in her element now, using every marketing trick she'd learned in her job. Create the problem, present the solution, close the deal. For 3 years, I've been watching Vincent struggle with basic household maintenance, bill paying, social isolation. He's been living in a 3-bedroom house by himself, holding on to space that could benefit a real family. Real family. There it was again, that phrase that cut straight to the bone. Deacon Miller stood up slowly. This man had known me since my first day in Oak Ridge, had helped me repair the back fence when the Johnson twins needed a basketball court. "Nicole, I'm confused. Vincent serves on 3 church committees. He teaches adult Sunday school every week. He volunteers at the food bank. What exactly are you seeing that we're not?" Nicole smiled like a teacher addressing a slow student. "Respectfully, sir, you're seeing what Vincent wants you to see. The truth is, he's no longer David's legal guardian. His foster care days are over. He served his purpose. And now it's time for him to step aside gracefully. The temperature in that room dropped about 10 degrees. These weren't just church members she was talking to. These were people who'd watched those foster kids grow up, who cheered at their graduations, who danced at their weddings. Furthermore, Nicole pressed on, emboldened by the shocked silence. I think it's important for everyone to understand that Vincent's relationship with David was always temporary. Foster care is a service, not a permanent family bond. That's when David found his voice. Nicole, stop. Please. Honey, I know this is emotional for you, but someone has to speak the truth. She turned back to the congregation like a prosecutor delivering closing arguments. I've arranged professional care for Vincent at Golden Meadows. My parents will take over his house, ensuring it stays within the actual family structure. The transition happens this weekend. She said it like she was announcing a bake sale. Matter of fact, already decided, no discussion necessary. That's when Mrs. Henderson stood up, all 5 feet of her bristling with righteous indignation. Young woman, I've known Vincent Clearwater for 30 years. I've watched him raise 28 children that nobody else wanted. Don't you dare stand in our church and tell us he's not real family to those children. The murmur that went through that fellowship hall sounded like a pot of water just starting to boil. You could feel the anger building, but these were church folks. They knew how to keep their temper in check, mostly. Nicole's face flushed red at Mrs. Henderson's challenge. She wasn't used to being contradicted, especially not by a 78-year-old Sunday school teacher. Ma'am, I understand your emotional attachment to Vincent's service, but emotion doesn't change biology. Those children were temporary placements, service projects, good deeds. They've moved on with their lives. Service projects. Let me tell you, that phrase hit the congregation like a physical blow. These people had watched those kids grow up in their church. They'd seen Amanda Foster sing in the youth choir, watched Kevin Moore play Joseph in the Christmas pageant, cheered when Lisa Warren graduated valedictorian. Deacon Miller's face was turning the color of a ripe tomato. This man had helped me build the wheelchair ramp when little Sarah Collins needed it, had driven to Nashville with me when Marcus Williams graduated from law school. Young lady, you're talking about a man who's dedicated his life to children in need. Show some respect. I am showing respect, Nicole shot back, her voice rising. I'm respecting reality. I'm respecting the fact that my parents raised 3 biological children and deserve consideration. I'm respecting the fact that blood relatives should have priority over temporary arrangements. The room erupted in angry whispers. I saw faces I'd known for decades, reflecting shock, confusion, and growing fury. These weren't abstract concepts Nicole was dismissing. These were real children they had watched grow into successful adults. Nicole raised her voice above the noise, and here's where she made her biggest mistake. Instead of backing down, she doubled down. I know this is uncomfortable, but someone has to say it. Vincent played a nice role in David's childhood, but playtime is over. Adult responsibilities require adult decisions. The moving truck comes Saturday morning. Saturday morning. She'd moved up the timeline again, probably hoping to catch me off guard. Pastor Williams tried to restore order. Nicole, I think we need to table this discussion. There's nothing to discuss, Pastor. The arrangements are made, the paperwork is signed. Vincent understands that this is best for everyone. All eyes turned to me. 60 people who'd known me for over 2 decades, waiting to see how I'd respond to this public humiliation. Would I fight back? Would I defend myself? Would I crumble under Nicole's accusations? Here's what Nicole didn't understand about small-town churches. These folks don't just know you on Sundays. They know you when your foster daughter needs emergency surgery at 2 a.m. They know you when you're organizing food drives for other struggling families. They know you when you're up all night, helping a traumatized kid with nightmares. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of every year, every battle I'd fought to give broken kids a chance at life. Nicole's right about one thing, I said quietly. It's time for realistic decisions. Nicole smiled triumphantly. She thought I was surrendering, right there in front of God and everybody. I need to make some phone calls, I continued, and I think this congregation is about to see what real family actually looks like. The smile started to fade from Nicole's face. Because you're right, Nicole. Playtime is over. That's when Harold Sterling, Nicole's own father, finally found his voice. The man looked mortified by his daughter's performance. "Nicole, honey, maybe we should go." "Dad, please. This is important." "What's important," Mrs. Henderson said, standing up again with fire in her eyes, "is that Vincent Clearwater has spent 30 years proving that love makes family, not blood. And you're standing in God's house trying to tear that down." The murmurs of agreement got louder. Pastor Williams looked around the room, reading the mood of his congregation, and I could see him making a decision. "You know what, Nicole? I think you've said enough for tonight. Pastor, you're trying to publicly humiliate a man who's given his life to serving others. In my church, during our fellowship time." Pastor Williams's voice carried that authority that comes from 30 years of dealing with difficult people. "I think it's time for you to leave." Nicole looked around the room, finally realizing she'd miscalculated badly. These weren't strangers she could manipulate with slick presentations. These were people who knew the truth about me, about my kids, about what family really means. "This isn't over," she said, gathering up her papers. "No," I replied, thinking about those 28 phone numbers in my contact list. "It's not." As Nicole stormed out with her parents trailing behind, the fellowship hall buzzed with conversation. People were coming up to me, offering support, asking what they could do to help. Mrs. Henderson patted my arm with tears in her eyes. "Vincent, that girl doesn't know what she's messing with?" Pastor Williams pulled me aside. "What do you need from us? Just pray," I said, "and maybe clear your schedule for Saturday morning. I have a feeling you're going to want to see what happens next. Because here's the thing about threatening a man's family, especially when that family includes 28 successful adults who've never forgotten where they came from." Nicole thought she was dealing with one isolated old man. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. Thursday morning, my phone started ringing at 6:00 a.m. sharp. But here's the thing. I was already awake, had been since 5:30, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a list of 28 phone numbers. You know that feeling when you're about to do something that's going to change everything? That's where I was, staring at those numbers and thinking about the conversation I'd had with David the night before. "Dad," he'd said, "what exactly are you planning?" "Justice, son, just justice." The first call I made was to Dr. Amanda Foster in Nashville. She answered on the second ring, which told me she was already in surgery prep mode. "Dad, I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling after that church thing? David called me last night and told me what Nicole did." "I'm fine, sweetheart. But I need to ask you something. Do you remember what I taught you about standing up to bullies?" There was a pause. "You never back down when someone threatens your family?" "That's right. And Nicole's threatening more than just me. She's threatening this house, the foster program, everything we've built together. Dad, what do you need?" And that's when I told her about Saturday morning, about the moving truck, about Nicole's plan to ship me off to assisted living and install her parents in the house where 28 kids had learned they mattered. The silence on the other end was ominous. Then Amanda's voice came back, carrying that steel I remembered from when she was 16, and someone at school said, "Foster kids didn't belong in honors classes. Give me 1 hour to make some calls." The second call was to Kevin Moore. Now, Kevin's always been the strategic one. Even as a kid, he thought 3 moves ahead. When I told him what was happening, he was quiet for a long moment. "Dad, legally speaking, what Nicole's attempting is harassment at minimum, possibly elder abuse. Do you want me to shut this down with paperwork?" "Not yet, son. But I want you here Saturday morning. I'll be there." By 8 a.m., my phone was buzzing every 5 minutes. Amanda had done what Amanda does best. She'd coordinated a medical response, except this time the emergency was family. Professor Lisa Warren called from the University of Tennessee. "Dad, I just spoke with Amanda. I can get here by Friday night with 8 other graduates from East Tennessee. Engineer Paul Adams checked in from his construction site. Dad, the Nashville crew is mobilizing. We'll be there." Detective Lieutenant Carlos Santos called from Knox County Sheriff's Department. "Dad, nobody messes with our family. I'm taking personal leave. Here's what Nicole didn't understand about the kids I'd raised. These weren't just successful adults who sent Christmas cards. These were people who'd learned loyalty from the ground up, who understood that family means you show up when it matters." Captain Maria Gonzalez called from her National Guard unit. "Dad, I can get emergency leave. What's the situation? Just come home, sweetheart. Come home. By noon, my quiet house had become mission control for an operation I hadn't planned but couldn't stop. David was fielding calls, writing down names, coordinating travel arrangements. His face kept switching between amazement and something that looked like pride. Dad, Dr. Murphy is flying in from Memphis. The Rodriguez twins are driving up from Atlanta. Even Sarah Collins is coming from Kentucky. Remember her? The little girl with the wheelchair? Yes, remember her? Sarah Collins had been 6 years old when she came to me, born with spina bifida, placed in foster care when her birth mother couldn't handle the medical needs. I'd learned more about physical therapy and adaptive equipment than any high school teacher should have to know. Now she was Dr. Sarah Collins, pediatric rehabilitation specialist. How many so far? I asked. David looked at his list. 23 confirmed for Saturday morning. 5 more trying to rearrange work schedules. Amanda called back at 2 p.m. Dad, we have a problem. What kind of problem? A good problem. Dr. Stevens wants to bring his whole family. That's 5 people right there. Kevin's law partners want to come support him. Lisa's bringing her entire graduate student advisory committee. We might have too many people. Too many people. Let me tell you, after 30 years of being told, these kids would never amount to anything. Hearing too many people want to defend our family was a pretty good problem to have. Amanda, how many cars are we talking about? Conservative estimate? 30 vehicles, maybe more. I thought about my quiet street, about Mrs. Peterson next door, about the moving truck Nicole had scheduled for 9 a.m. Saturday. Perfect, I said. Perfect, sweetheart. Nicole wants to make a statement about family. She's about to get one she'll never forget. That evening, as David and I sat on the back porch watching the sunset, he asked the question I knew was coming. Dad, what if this backfires? What if Nicole calls the police, claims harassment? I showed him my phone, scrolling through the text messages that had been coming in all day. Messages from doctors and lawyers and teachers and engineers. Messages from successful adults who still called me Dad, who still considered this house their home. Son, Nicole's about to learn the difference between being alone and being surrounded by family. Friday evening, 5:30 p.m. sharp, the first car pulled into my driveway. A silver Honda SUV with Tennessee plates, and out stepped Dr. Amanda Foster, still wearing scrubs from her afternoon surgery. She looked exactly like she had at 17, except now she carried herself with the confidence of someone who saves children's lives for a living. Dad! She hugged me like she was still that scared 13-year-old who'd arrived with nothing but anger and a garbage bag full of clothes. All that professional composure just melted away into pure daughter love. Where is she? Amanda asked, scanning the neighborhood like she was looking for hostile targets. This Nicole character? Probably at home, planning her victory celebration for tomorrow. Well, she's about to get a surprise. Amanda surveyed my house with those same analytical eyes she used in operating rooms. This place looks exactly the same. God, the memories. 20 minutes later, a black sedan with tinted windows pulled up. Attorney Kevin Moore stepped out, adjusting his tie like he was heading into court. At 32, he'd grown into the quiet authority that would have been impossible to imagine in the terrified 9-year-old who'd hidden in my closets. Dad. His hug was fierce, protective. I've been thinking about this all day. What Nicole's attempting isn't just wrong, it's actionable. Elder abuse, harassment, possibly fraud. Let's see what tomorrow brings first, son. By 6 p.m., my driveway was starting to look like a reunion. Honda Civics, Toyota Camrys, Ford pickups, vehicles that spoke of solid success without showing off. These were my kids, and they'd learned the values I'd tried to teach them. Work hard, live modestly, help others. Dr. Stephen Murphy arrived with his wife Jennifer and their twin 8-year-old daughters. Dad, the girls have been asking about their Grandpa Vince for months. I hope it's okay we brought them. More than okay. I knelt down to meet 2 little girls who'd never seen me before but had heard stories. You must be Emma and Grace. Grandpa Vince, they said in unison, and suddenly I had 2 8-year-olds wrapped around my legs like I'd known them forever. Professor Lisa Warren pulled up in her university parking permit-covered Subaru, followed by engineer Paul Adams in his work truck. Detective Lieutenant Carlos Santos arrived in his personal vehicle, but you could still see the cop in the way he carried himself. the way his eyes automatically scanned for potential problems. By 7 p.m., my modest house was buzzing with voices I hadn't heard altogether in years. But here's the thing that would have surprised Nicole. They weren't bragging about their success or showing off their accomplishments. They were sharing memories. Remember when Dad taught us to change oil in this driveway? Carlos laughed, pointing to the concrete where his truck now sat. I was 16, convinced I'd never need to know that stuff. Independence starts with basic skills, Amanda added, quoting something I'd said 1,000 times. Kevin nodded toward the kitchen. Friday night budgeting lessons at that table. You can't build wealth if you don't understand money. And Saturday morning pancakes, Lisa added with a grin. Dad flipping pancakes while we did our homework. These weren't just successful adults reminiscing. These were grateful children honoring the foundation that had made their success possible. David moved through the crowd with growing amazement. He'd known some of these siblings growing up, but seeing them as accomplished professionals was overwhelming. Lisa, I can't believe you're department head at UT now. Dad always said we were capable of greatness. He just made us believe it ourselves. Dr. Murphy was examining the family photos on my walls, the same photos Nicole had dismissed as meaningless memories. Dad, you should see what happened at the hospital when I told them why I was taking emergency leave. 3 other doctors wanted to come show support. As the evening progressed, the conversation turned strategic. These weren't just emotional visits. These were planning sessions. So, what's the timeline for tomorrow? Amanda asked, pulling out her phone like she was coordinating a medical emergency. Kevin leaned forward with that lawyer focus. Nicole expects to find a week-old man ready to surrender his house. Instead, she'll find 28 successful adults who consider this man their father and this house their family home. What time did she say the moving truck would arrive? Paul asked. 9 a.m. Captain Maria Gonzalez, who just arrived in dress uniform, checked her watch with military precision. Perfect. We'll be in position by 8:30. Full family presence, professional but peaceful. Carlos nodded approvingly. I like it. No threats, no drama. Just truth standing in the driveway. The truth being, David asked. Kevin's answer was quiet but firm. That Dad didn't just raise 28 children, he raised 28 adults who protect their family. Amanda stood up, surveying the room full of her siblings. Nicole wanted to know what real family looks like. Tomorrow morning, she gets her education. By 10 p.m., most of my children had checked into the Hampton Inn down the road, but several insisted on staying overnight. Amanda took her old room. Kevin claimed the living room couch that had been his favorite spot 20 years ago. Lisa set up her laptop in the kitchen to handle some university business. It felt like Christmas morning, except instead of opening presents, we were preparing to defend our home. As I lay in bed listening to my children's voices drifting through the house, I realized Nicole had made one fundamental miscalculation. She'd seen a lonely old man in a house too big for one person. Tomorrow morning, she was about to discover the difference between being alone and being surrounded by family. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, with that October bite in the air that makes you glad to be alive. I woke up at 5:30 to the smell of coffee and bacon drifting from my kitchen. Amanda was already up, cooking breakfast like she had as a teenager, wearing one of my old Oak Ridge High School t-shirts over her jeans. Big day, Dad. You ready for this? I looked out my window at the driveway and had to smile. By 6 a.m., cars were already arriving. Not just any cars, this was like watching a parade of American success stories pull up to my modest house. Honda SUVs, Toyota sedans, Ford F-150s, Chevy Silverados. Vehicles that said, I work hard for what I have. No flashy sports cars or luxury imports. These were my kids, and they understood the difference between success and showing off. How many so far? I asked Amanda as she flipped pancakes. 26 confirmed arrivals, 2 more coming in from Memphis. She grinned. Carlos is out there directing traffic like he's working crowd control at a concert. By 7:30 a.m., the transformation was complete. 28 vehicles lined both sides of Clearwater Street, creating a corridor of achievement that stretched 3 blocks in each direction. Mrs. Peterson from across the street was on her porch in her bathrobe, staring like she'd never seen anything like it. But the cars were just the beginning. 28 adults in professional attire stood in perfect formation across my front lawn. Dr. Amanda Foster in her white coat with a stethoscope draped around her neck. She'd brought it specifically for this moment. Attorney Kevin Moore in a charcoal suit that screamed courtroom authority. Professor Lisa Warren in academic professional attire that said I belong in a university. You know what impressed me most? The organization. Captain Maria Gonzalez had arranged them by profession, using that military precision she'd learned in the National Guard. Medical professionals on the left, legal and academic experts in the center, engineers and public service professionals on the right. Each person held a small white sign with their name and title, professionally printed overnight by Paul Adams Construction Company. Dr. Amanda Foster, Chief of Pediatric Surgery, Vanderbilt Medical Center. Kevin Moore, Partner, Moore & Associates Law Firm. Professor Lisa Warren, Department Head, University of Tennessee. Dr. Stephen Murphy, Orthopedic Surgery, Memphis General Hospital. Engineer Paul Adams, Adams Construction Solutions. Detective Lieutenant Carlos Santos, Knox County Sheriff's Department. Captain Maria Gonzalez, Tennessee National Guard. 28 signs, 28 success stories, 28 lives that had started in the house behind them. Dad, David said, coming up beside me as I stood on my front porch. This is incredible. Look at what you built, what I built. That's not how I saw it, though. I'd just given these kids the same thing every child deserves. A safe place to grow, someone who believed in them, and the tools to succeed. They'd done the rest themselves. At 8:15, neighbors started emerging from their houses. The Williams family next door gathered at their front window. Mrs. Peterson had been joined by her husband, both of them staring in amazement. Word was spreading through the neighborhood faster than gossip at a church social. Something's happening at Vincent Clearwater's house. Tommy Richardson, my current 8-year-old foster placement, was watching from the upstairs window, his face pressed against the glass. This was the first time he'd seen all his siblings together, and I could tell he was trying to process it all. Are all those people really your children? He'd asked at breakfast. Every single one, buddy, and now you're part of this family too. By 8:30, the formation was complete. 28 successful adults standing shoulder to shoulder, representing everything Nicole claimed didn't matter. Family bonds built on love instead of blood. Loyalty earned through sacrifice and commitment. Dr. Murphy's twin daughters, Emma and Grace, were positioned safely behind the adult line, wearing matching t-shirts that read Team Clearwater. Lisa had had them made overnight. Several other grandchildren stood with them, creating a multi-generational display that spoke to the future as much as the past. Kevin was handling the legal angle, carrying a leather portfolio with documentation of my mental competency, financial stability, and property rights. Just in case Nicole tries to claim legal authority, he'd explained. Carlos had his detective credentials visible, not as a threat, but as a reminder that law enforcement professionals don't typically support elder abuse. Visual deterrent, he'd called it, with a grin. Amanda had positioned herself as the family spokesperson, using that calm authority she'd developed delivering life-changing news to families in hospital waiting rooms. At 8:45, Pastor Williams drove by slowly, rolled down his window, and gave me a thumbs up. Vincent, I wouldn't miss this for the world. Mind if I park and watch? Your family too, Pastor. At 8:50, I checked my watch and felt that familiar pre-game nervousness I used to get before big football games when I was coaching. Except, this wasn't a game. This was about protecting everything that mattered. Positions everyone, Captain Gonzalez called quietly. Target approaching. At 8:57, Nicole's Honda Pilot turned onto Clearwater Street. Showtime. I watched from my front porch as Nicole's confident expressions dissolved into confusion, then shock, then something approaching pure panic. Her Honda Pilot slowed to a crawl as she took in the impossible scene stretched out before her. 28 vehicles lined both sides of Clearwater Street like a parade of American success. She had to park 3 blocks away because there wasn't a single open space within 200 yards of my house. Nicole climbed out slowly, her head swiveling left and right like she was trying to process what she was seeing. She'd dressed for victory. Designer jeans, expensive blouse, that confident smile she wore when she thought she had all the angles covered. Her parents, Harold and Patricia Sterling, followed behind her like nervous backup singers, clutching the paperwork for Golden Meadows Assisted Living. The moving truck rounded the corner at exactly 9 a.m., then stopped dead in the street. The driver couldn't get within 200 yards of my house. I could see him on his radio, probably calling his dispatcher to report some kind of neighborhood event blocking his access. Nicole approached the edge of my property line and stopped cold. 28 pairs of professional eyes watched her, with the focused attention of people accustomed to high-stakes situations. Doctors who made life and death decisions. Lawyers who argued cases before federal judges. Engineers who built bridges. Law enforcement officers who faced down dangerous criminals. All of them standing united behind the man who'd raised them. Dr. Amanda Foster stepped forward, her white coat pristine, her stethoscope catching the morning sunlight. Her voice carried that calm authority I'd heard her use when delivering difficult news to families. "You must be Nicole Clearwater." Nicole's mouth opened and closed like a fish suddenly finding itself on dry land. "Who? What is this?" "I'm Dr. Amanda Foster, Chief of Pediatric Surgery at Vanderbilt Medical Center." Amanda gestured toward the crowd behind her, with the confidence of someone who commanded operating rooms. "These are my brothers and sisters." Attorney Kevin Moore stepped up beside her, every inch the successful lawyer in his perfectly tailored suit. Kevin Moore, partner at Moore & Associates law firm, Nashville. Professor Lisa Warren joined them, her academic authority unmistakable. Lisa Warren, department head, University of Tennessee College of Education. One by one, 28 successful adults introduced themselves, each name, each title, each achievement hitting Nicole like physical blows. You could see her world crumbling as the reality became undeniable. Dr. Stephen Murphy, orthopedic surgery, Memphis General Hospital. Engineer Paul Adams, Adams Construction Solutions, $15 million in annual revenue. Detective Lieutenant Carlos Santos, Knox County Sheriff's Department. Captain Maria Gonzalez, Tennessee National Guard. Dr. Sarah Collins, Pediatric Rehabilitation Specialist. Professor Michael Torres, Vanderbilt University Law School. Detective Lisa Martinez, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. The introductions kept coming, a litany of success that Nicole had never bothered to notice when she walked past those graduation photos in my hallway. "We understand," Amanda continued, her voice cutting through the morning air like a surgeon's scalpel, "that you have some questions about our father's living situation." "Your father?" Nicole's voice cracked like a teenager going through puberty. "Vincent Clearwater. The man who raised us. The man who saved our lives. The man you think should be moved to assisted living so your parents can have his house." The crowd shifted slightly, a subtle movement that somehow made them appear even more formidable. These weren't just successful individuals. They were a unified force, a family in the truest sense of the word. Kevin opened his leather portfolio with the precision of a man who'd argued cases before the Tennessee Supreme Court. "I've reviewed your proposal, Ms. Clearwater. Legally speaking, it's fascinating. You want to remove a competent adult from his home based on what exactly?" He's old," Nicole stammered. "He lives alone. My parents need—" "Your parents need?" Lisa's professor voice could have silenced a lecture hall full of graduate students. "Let me tell you what our father needs. He needs respect for the 30 years he spent raising society's forgotten children. He needs recognition for the 28 lives he saved. He needs acknowledgement that love and sacrifice matter more than biology." Nicole looked desperately toward the moving truck, still blocked 3 blocks away by the wall of vehicles. "You don't understand. David is my husband. This is a family matter." "You're absolutely right," Amanda said, her smile sharp as a scalpel. "This is a family matter." She gestured toward the crowd. 28 children, 16 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren. All of us consider Vincent Clearwater our father, and this house our family home. But you're not really what? Captain Gonzalez stepped forward, her military bearing unmistakable in her dress uniform. "Not really family?" "I've been calling this man Dad for 18 years. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding. My children call him Grandpa. What part of that isn't real?" Nicole's parents had gone pale. Patricia Sterling was staring at the professional crowd with growing horror, finally understanding what her daughter had tried to destroy. "We didn't know," Harold Sterling stammered, his voice barely audible. "Nicole told us. She said Vincent was alone, that he needed care. Dr. Murphy addressed Nicole's parents directly, his voice carrying the gentle authority he used with worried families. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, I don't think you understand what your daughter was asking Vincent to give up. This house isn't just a building. It's the heart of a family that spans 3 states. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every celebration happens here. This is where broken children learned they were worthy of love. Does he look like he needs care? Professor Warren gestured toward me as I stepped down from my porch to join my children. I walked slowly to the center of the formation, and they parted to make room for me, creating a protective circle that spoke louder than any words about what family really means. Nicole, I said quietly, my voice carrying across the silent street, I believe you wanted to discuss my housing situation. Nicole looked around at the 28 successful adults surrounding her, at the luxury vehicles lining the street, at the neighbors watching from their porches, at the moving truck stranded blocks away. The weight of her miscalculation was crushing her, and everyone could see it. Nicole stood there for what felt like an eternity, looking around at the 28 successful adults surrounding her like she was trying to find an escape route from a nightmare. Her mouth moved soundlessly, her confident facade cracking like ice on a warm day. This is exactly what it is, Amanda said firmly, her surgeon's voice cutting through Nicole's stammering. This is what happens when you threaten our father. This is what real family looks like. The moving truck driver was walking toward us now, clipboard in hand, looking thoroughly confused by the professional crowd blocking his access to the house. Behind him, neighbors were gathering on their porches, drawn by the spectacle unfolding on quiet Clearwater Street. "Ma'am," the driver called to Nicole, "we can't get to the house. There's no access. Should we reschedule?" Nicole turned toward the driver like a drowning woman reaching for a life preserver, but even that hope was about to disappear. She started, then looked back at the wall of professional authority surrounding me. Kevin Moore's legal portfolio, Dr. Foster's medical credentials, Captain Gonzalez's military bearing, Detective Santos's law enforcement presence. "Cancel it," she whispered. "What was that?" Kevin cupped his ear theatrically, the way lawyers do when they want a statement on record. "Cancel the truck." Nicole's voice broke completely. "Cancel everything." The driver shrugged and walked back toward his vehicle, already pulling out his phone to call the dispatcher. 3 blocks away, we could see him gesturing toward the impossible scene of family unity that had brought his moving operation to a complete standstill. That's when Harold Sterling, Nicole's own father, stepped forward with the look of a man who'd finally understood something terrible. "Nicole, honey, what have you done?" "Dad, I was trying to help. I was being practical." "Practical?" Patricia Sterling's voice carried the horror of a mother watching her child destroy everything good in reach. "You were trying to throw a good man out of his own home? He's not family. These people aren't family." Nicole's composure was completely gone now, her voice rising to something close to a shriek. "Blood makes family. Biology makes family." "No," came a quiet voice from behind the crowd of adults. Everyone turned to see 8-year-old Tommy Richardson standing in my front doorway. He'd been watching from the upstairs window, but now he'd come down to see what was happening to his home, his family. "Love makes family," Tommy said, walking down to stand beside me. "That's what Grandpa Vince taught me." The sight of that little boy, the newest member of our family, standing up to defend his home, hit the crowd like an emotional sledgehammer. Several of my adult children had tears in their eyes. Dr. Murphy knelt down to Tommy's level. "That's right, buddy, and we're all here to make sure nobody takes your home away." Nicole stared at Tommy like he was some kind of alien creature. "He's just another foster placement, temporary. When Vincent dies, where does he go?" "Wherever he wants," Amanda said firmly. "We're his family now. All of us. That's how this works. That's insane." "What's insane," Professor Warren said with academic precision, "is thinking that genetics determine worth. What's insane is believing that love and commitment and sacrifice don't create real bonds." The neighbors were getting closer now, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Peterson had walked across the street, still in her bathrobe, staring at the professional gathering with amazement. "Vincent, what in heaven's name is going on?" "Mrs. Peterson, I'd like you to meet my children," I said, gesturing toward the crowd. "All of them. Mrs. Peterson's eyes went wide as she took in the doctors, lawyers, professors, and professionals standing in formation. All of these successful people, they're your foster children? Every single one, Amanda said proudly. And we're here because someone threatened our father. Pastor Williams had arrived and was standing at the edge of the crowd, taking in the scene with the satisfied expression of a man watching justice served. He caught my eye and nodded approvingly. Nicole was looking around desperately now, realizing that she wasn't just facing my family. She was facing the entire community that had watched her public humiliation at the church dinner. People who'd seen her dismiss me as unworthy of respect or consideration. "This won't stand up in court," she said, grasping for legal authority she didn't have. Kevin Moore laughed. Actually laughed. "Ms. Sterling, I'd love to see you try to make that argument. Your Honor, I demand the right to forcibly relocate a competent adult against his will so my parents can have his house. Please file that motion. I could use the entertainment. The state won't let him keep foster children at his age." "The state," Detective Santos said quietly, "doesn't typically remove children from loving homes without cause. And since I work closely with Child Protective Services, I can tell you they are more concerned with abuse and neglect than they are with a 69-year-old man who successfully raised 28 children." Nicole's last hope was crumbling. No legal standing, no community support, no moral authority. Her own parents were staring at her like they'd never seen her before. "I was trying to help," she said weakly. "The house is too big for one person." "One person?" Amanda gestured toward the crowd. "Do you see one person? Because I see a family of 30-plus people who consider this house their home." The transformation was complete. The confident woman who demanded my house 3 days ago had been reduced to a stammering shell by the simple presence of love made visible. Harold Sterling took his daughter's arm gently. "Come on, Nicole. Let's go home." As they walked away, Nicole turned back once, her face a mixture of defeat and something that might have been understanding. "This isn't over," she said, but there was no conviction in her voice. "Yes," I replied, thinking about the family surrounding me. "It is." The ripple effects of Nicole's public humiliation spread through Oak Ridge like wildfire in dry grass. By noon Saturday, someone had filmed the entire confrontation from their phone, and the video was already making rounds on social media. Retired teachers' 28 successful foster children defend family home hit 50,000 views in the first 6 hours. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. "This is what real family looks like. Foster parents are heroes. That daughter-in-law got exactly what she deserved." But the consequences went far beyond internet fame. Monday morning, Nicole arrived at Sterling Insurance Agency to find a pink slip waiting on her desk. Her own father, Harold Sterling, couldn't meet her eyes as he delivered the news. "I'm sorry, daughter, but after what happened Saturday, I can't have you representing our family business. Oak Ridge Baptist canceled their insurance contract this morning. That was our biggest account." Pastor Williams had made it clear that anyone who would publicly humiliate a respected church member wasn't welcome in their business dealings. The $25,000 annual premium was more than Harold could afford to lose. But the professional consequences were just the beginning. Nicole's marriage hit the rocks immediately. David moved back into my house that same Saturday afternoon, bringing Tommy Richardson with him. The 8-year-old had watched the entire confrontation from the window, and David wasn't about to let him feel abandoned. "I can't be married to someone who would treat you like that," David told me through tears. "Nicole showed me who she really is, and I don't want any part of it." Marriage counseling lasted exactly 2 sessions. Nicole spent both meetings trying to justify her actions, insisting she'd been practical and realistic about family priorities. The therapist noted her complete inability to acknowledge wrongdoing or show genuine remorse. The divorce papers were filed within 6 weeks. Perhaps most devastating was the social isolation. Nicole had lived in Oak Ridge for 5 years, building what she thought were solid relationships. But after the video went viral, she became a pariah in her own community. The coffee shop where she'd met friends every Friday suddenly had no available tables when she walked in. The hair salon where she'd gotten cuts for 3 years told her they were booked solid for the next 6 months. Even the grocery store checkout clerks treated her with cold politeness. Her own extended family turned against her. Nicole's brother in Memphis cut off contact completely. Her cousins in Atlanta stopped inviting her to family gatherings. The annual Sterling family reunion, 15 years of tradition, was quietly canceled because nobody wanted to deal with the embarrassment Nicole had brought on the family name. 3 months later, Nicole left Oak Ridge entirely. She moved to Atlanta where nobody knew her story and tried to rebuild her life. But the internet has a long memory, and the video followed her everywhere. Potential employers Googled her name and found the story. Dating became impossible when men recognized her from the viral video. Meanwhile, the positive effects for my real family were extraordinary. The viral video led to donations for Oak Ridge's foster care program, exceeding $75,000. 2 other families in town applied for foster care licenses, inspired by seeing what was possible when a community supports children in need. Tommy Richardson, the 8-year-old who'd witnessed everything and stood up to defend his home, began calling me Grandpa Vince. His permanent adoption was finalized 4 months later, making him officially child number 29. The story caught the attention of the Tennessee Department of Children's Services, who featured our family in their recruitment materials. Applications for foster care licenses across the state increased by 40% in the following year. But the sweetest consequence came 6 months later, during what would become known as the Reconciliation Christmas. I was working in my garden on a mild December afternoon when a familiar Honda Pilot pulled into my driveway. Nicole climbed out slowly, her confidence replaced by something that looked like hard-earned humility. She'd lost weight, gained gray in her hair, and carried herself like a woman who'd learned devastating lessons about the difference between being right and being good. "Vincent, could we talk?" I set down my pruning shears and looked at the woman who'd once tried to take everything from me. "What's on your mind, Nicole? I owe you an apology. A real one." Her voice shook with genuine emotion. "I was wrong about everything. About family, about you, about what matters. I let greed and pride convince me that I was entitled to something that wasn't mine. I appreciate that, Nicole. Could there ever be a chance for me to earn forgiveness? From David? From Tommy? From you?" I looked at this broken woman and saw what I'd always seen in damaged children who came to my door. Someone capable of redemption, someone worthy of a second chance. Family isn't who shares your blood, Nicole. It's who chooses to stand by you, even when you've made mistakes. Real forgiveness requires real change. Are you ready for that kind of work? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then we'll see what's possible. That Christmas, for the first time in months, Nicole joined us for dinner. Not as David's wife, those papers had been signed, but as someone learning what family really means. She sat quietly at the end of the table, watching 30-plus people celebrate together, beginning to understand what she'd almost destroyed. Tommy, bless his heart, was the first to offer her a piece of his Christmas pie. "Grandpa Vince says everyone deserves a second chance," he told her seriously. "Even people who make big mistakes. If you're watching this, let me know what makes someone family to you, because after 70 years on this earth and 29 children who call me dad, I can tell you it's not about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who stays. It's about who stands with you when the world tries to tear you down. That's family. That's everything that matters."